I'm going to look at this number. If it's $1 billion for sale, I'm going to short the shit out of the market at 9:31 time. Hey guys, I'm here on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, right under the bell. Hopefully one day my man Nour here is going to be going public with one of his many, many companies. I'm honored that he came. I'm hosting him here, VIP to the moon, on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. He's created an extraordinary community of day traders. He's out there trying to educate, motivate, and inspire a whole world and generation of traders. He's not trying to keep it for himself. So I'm honored, I am proud to call him my new friend and have him here on the floor of the exchange.
If I ever go public, I'm requesting you to ring the bell with me.
You got that. I'm going to be trading those first shares.
A lot of people don't know this, but once upon a time, I did intern on Wall Street, right across the stock exchange in the Trump building. So this was back in 2016. So what is that, like 8 years ago? Today, 8 years later, we're getting invited to the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. It's gonna be the first time that I actually get to see the inside of this. We used to pass this every single morning and just wonder how it would look inside. Like, obviously you can see pictures online, but the in-person experience is far different. So today we're taking you on the trip. We're obviously going to meet Einstein of Wall Street. If you guys don't know who that is a big legend on Wall Street. So we're going to do that. He also said we're going to do a podcast with him, and then we're just going to take you on like a full experience around the exchange. What goes on in there? You know, how does it sound? Is it like the movies? Everything in between. So I hope you guys enjoy this vlog. This is more of like a day in the life, but it's a little different. This is more of like a throwback. So we're not trading today, it's Friday, which is okay because we're getting this experience. But we'll take you around on this one.
I'm getting up soon in the morning. I believe I dust my broom. I'm getting up
dell'intervista di ieri, parti con i saluti e poi continuiamo.
Wow.
E qua prendi l'inizio dell'intervista di ieri.
Oh, this is crazy, dude. Yeah, this is crazy.
Okay, this is order flow coming into the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. So the key is, look, there are trading venues everywhere, but if you're able to identify what comes into one venue and know the dollar notional value of that, then you can find an edge within the market. We're up 16.5 handles. I happen to know, look at that, that's 100% for sale. So I track the S&P 500, so look at that. Bank sell 570, Ford, Pfizer, Telephone 350. This is probably $1 billion for sale overall. Look at that. One buy in the first 50, no buys, no buys, no one buy down to Norwegian. I mean, look at that. So that's 90% is in option X today.
I'm not sure.
Could be option X. That's probably what it is. Yes, the third Friday. So that's why. So there's probably $1 billion for sale. Okay. The SPYs are up 16 handles. Now this is going to change for the next 11 minutes. Every 5 seconds, every time you see this machine flash, it's updating numbers, okay? So at 9:29.50, I'm going to look at this number. If it's $1 billion for sale, I'm going to short the shit out of the market at 9:31 time. I don't do anything from 9:30 to 9:31 because it's just a bunch of monkeys hitting banana, hitting buttons. Cool. This is the crash of 1929. Okay, that was the day obviously everybody went belly up. You can see the Model A Fords, all the old cars. Back in those days, people used to wear, depending on how wealthy you were, they used to wear a hat, sort of demarcated how much money you had. So the guys with bowlers, these guys were rich guys. Right, the guys with fedoras, those guys were sort of like street hustlers. And then these were like street, these were like sort of young kids who were just trying to make a living here. But that's where you walked in the building. So really nothing's changed in 130 years, right? This is the same room you guys were standing right here under the bell. Okay, so this is the same room in 1955, right? There were probably 7,000 people there. It was all men, right? Obviously paper, open outcry, screaming and yelling. There was no technology at all, obviously. This is the same room in 1985. So computers came along in 1983. It was the beginning of it, but they sort of didn't come down here. They sort of trickled in. These were called Quotron machines. That was sort of the early sort of static TV set that used to make you used to be able to see what the market was. But these are sort of clerks and market. That's kind of the energy you used to see on the floor on any given day. At the peak, sort of in the 80s, there were 8,000 people in that room where you are today. So there's the bell. On the outside of the room are brokerage firms, okay, that were connected. So there are these stalls. You see that stall over there? So the room used to be set up with stalls along the way. Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, all the brokerage firms that had stalls with phones. The clerks would stand there in front of a tree of 100 phones. It was connected to trading desks, you know, up the street in Singapore, UK, wherever it was. And all that order flow would come down to the floor, okay? So those are the brokers. These guys are called market makers, right? So these are the specialists, okay? I know most day traders think that they're bad guys. They're not bad guys. They don't see your stop orders. They're not out to fuck you, right? They're way too busy to be wasting time worrying. I deal with retail traders all the time who think that market makers can see their stop orders, right? That's why people aren't using real. Do you use a stop order on every trade?
Yeah, of course.
Every trade. Good. All right. They don't have to beat you up over that. So anyway, so market makers basically work for independent companies that are allocated stocks by the exchange, okay? So in the old days, it started out with 1, 2, 3 stocks. There were a couple of market making firms. Most of them were family owned, okay? Like Italian, Jewish, Irish came down here in the early part of 1900s and kind of came to Wall Street, and they had a little money. And so they were given 1 stock, 2 stocks. And basically the job of a market maker is to inject liquidity into the market, right? So in the old days of paper, if there were 3 sellers and 2 buyers, they'd buy stock to consummate a trade. Right now, every trade is 100 share lots. Well, back then, we used to put on prints, 5,000, 100,000, million shares. That's how we traded. It was a different business, okay? So these guys, from 70 market making firms, there's 3 left. So they used to be family-owned businesses. Then in the 60s and 70s, they kind of merged because they need to be able to capitalize all the trades they do. So the more stocks they had, the more money they needed, right? And then when the market kind of got volatile in the 80s, right, the crash of 87, a lot of these firms went bankrupt because on the day of the crash of 87, they were holding positions that were down 60, 70%. And as we know, at the close of business, it's a margin call. If you don't have the money to support whatever position you're in, so if you were you alive then? 1987? No. Okay. So in the crash of 87, there were stocks that were down 67. The market was down 39% that day. So I was trading then, back then I was trading digital equipment. It's one of the first computer companies. It was a $168 stock. It closed at 47. The market maker was buying stock all the way down. He went bankrupt that day. He was not able to hold his position. So there was a couple of guys who had big money who were able to see that this was not the end of the world. Some people didn't have the money to support it, right? And they literally went bankrupt that day or sold their firm to other people, right? But that day, I mean, that was one of the most horrifying days. You can't. I was a clerk on the floor back then. It was absolutely sheer madness. Literally, when the bell rang, like everybody was, just like lie down on the floor and sort of gave up. But anyway, so market makers, now there are 3 of them, and literally they are still allocated stocks by the stock exchange, right? These guys, so in the 80s and 90s, they started merging, and then they started getting taken over by banks, because banks were the only ones who had enough money capitalization to support all the stocks and the volatility that was trading. And then what ended up happening was, as the market got crazier, you've got Citadel is a market maker, okay? He's also a hedge fund, the largest in the world. He's got, I don't know, 9 trillion under management. So he can capitalize anything he wants. No, all you'll see is 100 shares pop up. And if somebody hits me on 100 shares, another 100 shares will pop up. So that transparency of knowing what's going on is gone. And it'll probably never come back, which is too bad, because that's how we put on big trades, right? So those guys play a huge role here. right? And they're basically to inject liquidity into the market. If in the absence of a public buyer, they have to buy it. In the absence of a public seller, they have to sell it. So if a stock is coming down and getting sold for bad news, now they don't have to stand in front of a freight train, right? But there are parameters every 50 cents, every 20 cents, that where they have to participate, right? You have a question?
No, that I actually just learned.
Okay, so that's important to know, that basically their job is representing the corporation to create a smooth and active market so that the stocks don't crash. And look, that can be a good thing or a bad thing. If a stock has got bad news in it and they're the only buyer, they have to participate. Hopefully the bad news ends, and like Boeing. I mean, this guy's, last week were long Boeing up the ass and they got hurt because it just never popped, right? But eventually, look, stocks will pop, or you'll be able to get out of the stock, or you'll take a loss, or you'll hedge yourself. Look, in the world of algos and stuff, so the market makers have a risk management team upstairs. If they're in a position, they're suddenly long Boeing, they're suddenly long 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, they'll be able to offlay stock using options or futures to hedge themselves, right? So they will never be nakedly long or short a stock or an index because it's too dangerous, right? In a market where these guys are actually trading 10, 20 billion dollars of stock a day, right? Citadel literally has 1,600 stocks that they're long or short all day long. That's billions of dollars, right? So that's kind of wild. But anyway, that's kind of a wrap of what goes on here. But our relationship with the market maker is important. Some guys now who are just sort of down on all the technology, sit in the back of the room and just, hit the handheld. I'll show you what it looks like. But for me, it's important to have a good relationship with them. My customers want to know information. If I'm in a stock, I'll go out there and say, who's been selling it lately? What's going on? What do you think of the stock? That conversation is important. It's all about an edge, right? And if my customers can get an edge by using me on the floor, right, that's a big deal. We can go over the option wire. The firm that I work for on the floor is the largest option execution firm on Wall Street. So Trade Moss, where we work.
Wild over there.
It is wild over. It's like what goes on over there is just like what we used to do. It's open outcry. The guys are over there screaming and yelling out. We've got 100 contracts. Apple 380 calls. It's what we can walk over and see. We'll go over and see that. Let me see if this. Oh man. Cool. Hey guys. So anyway, I've got all kinds of collectible toys with my character and whatnot. But this is sort of a limited edition. It's done by an artist named E. Toro. He's a Spanish artist. Grab that for me.
Got you.
There's only 30 of them were made. So there you go, man.
That's sick.
Okay, it's for, every trading desk should have one.
That'll be right on my desk.
There you go, right?
That's sick.
All right, so you got 1 to 30 in the whole
Thank
world.
you.
That's all there is.
Appreciate
My
it.
gift to you, buddy. Give me this.